All right, Fins fam, the hits just keep on coming. The Dolphins' biggest fear was in fact confirmed. Connor Williams has torn his ACL and will miss the remainder of the season. So the injury woes on the offensive line just continue. Williams was having a breakout year and unfortunately now will miss the remainder of the season. That means Liam Eichenberg will step in as the backup center. And with all the injuries, even Lester Cotton is going to take some snaps at center this week as the Dolphins gear up for the Jets. Mike McDaniel also added that the Dolphins are not opposed to adding a veteran. So we'll keep you posted on that if they make a move, because whenever Dolphins news happens, we've got you covered on Dolphins Today. Even if it is bummer news like we have today, it's official. Connor Williams, torn ACL, out for the remainder of the season. Pro Football Focus top center out for the Dolphins.
Yes. Thank you for that information about why Connor Williams did not finish his 2023 campaign with the Miami Dolphins. If you don't know, because everyone is talking about it, Seahawks signed center Connor Williams, who's damn good. He's a damn good center. But what does that actually mean? We're going to talk about that today. Thank you for watching First Kick Seahawks. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel First Kick Seahawks, where we prepare you for the first kick of every play by game day. And I want you to be prepared. I want you to be prepared for this, man, because I don't know if you were watching that preseason game the other day, but the Seahawks ran all over the Chargers. We kicked their ass. Now, it's preseason week 1, but I was pretty impressed with how Oluwatimi held up. The post-game reaction show, which came out really late. This one's also coming out really late. I don't want to do these in the wee hours of the morning, but I haven't been feeling good. So I record when I record. Ideally, I'd be doing it during the day. But the interior of the line looks really fucking good. With Tomlinson, Oluwatimi, Bradford, and then Christian Haynes. They all look really fucking good. We had Nick Harris at center for about a drive, and then he got traded to the Browns. So goodbye, Nick Harris, and hello, Connor Williams. What an upgrade. I don't know why the Dolphins let this man go. Yeah, he has a history of health issues, and he did just come off of a torn ACL, but he plays offensive line, right? We see guys with torn ACLs play in games because they just manage, right? Offensive linemen are troopers. But I always say, if you watch this show, you've heard me say it before, there's about a 75 to 100% chance that any of your offensive line starters is not going to play a full season. So you should have 8 starters, 8 players that can start. And so historically, the Seahawks have not had that. In particular, they haven't even had a center that should be starting. The last good center we had was Max Unger, who we traded to the Saints for Jimmy Graham. And then we replaced him with Drew Nowak, who was a guy who had never played offensive line before, even though we spent the entire camp talking about Christian Sicoli, who had also never played offensive line before. It was bad. We then brought in Justin Britt, who had failed at right tackle and right guard, and then they ended up moving him to center with a bunch of guys who had never played the game before, including George Fant, on that line. He had more games started, Justin Britt, than the rest of that offensive line, right? He was our veteran guy, and people thought he was a good center. No, he just looked good compared to everyone else on that line. And so when you look at the current line, we have Tomlinson at left guard, who played a ton for the 49ers and looked damn good. He played for the Jets and looked okay, but it's the goddamn Jets. And then when you look at right guard, we have Anthony Bradford, who played a few snaps last year, and he's looking solid, right? We're like, let's see if this guy can develop. And yesterday, the day before, he looked damn good against that Chargers team. Wasn't really getting beat, right? If anything, the tackles were getting teed off. Christian Haynes, the second pick of the 2024 draft for the Seahawks, looked comparable to Anthony Bradford, was getting to the second level for his blocks, was making good press for the inside zone runs, things that I like to see. And then Oluwatimi, of course, one of the best centers to come out of his draft. The only reason he didn't get drafted higher is because he's not built gigantically, right? So he fell, and people also don't value centers. So now if you just put all of those guys together, you have Tomlinson, Bradford, who can play both guard positions, Christian Haynes, who also played both guard positions, Oluwatimi, and Connor Williams. That's 5 players right there that can start right now. And we'll still see, right, how they actually go up against schemes. Maybe Tomlinson's not as good as advertised. Maybe Oluwatimi isn't good at picking up, certain checks that he's supposed to articulate to the rest of the line for blocking schemes. But then after that 5, we have Cross at left tackle. That's 6 starters. We have Abraham Lucas at right tackle. That's 7 starters. And I'll tell you what, he's probably not going to start this year that much. I'd say, if anything, he starts 5 games. And then we have George Fant. Those are 8 guys right there that can start, with Connor Williams and Abraham Lucas being the 2 that are probably not going to play the full season. But that's 8. That's 8. And any of them can start right now. None of them are developmental projects, except you might argue Oluwatimi and Christian Haynes. Oluwatimi because he played well last year, but still needs more experience under his belt. And then Christian Haynes. But Anthony Bradford has proven himself already. We just need to prove that Abraham Lucas can stay healthy. But his backup is... we got Stone Forsythe at left tackle, but George Fant can play left tackle. And then we have that Frog Curtis, who did not look great. But he would have been the 10th tackle on the line, right? So I would bet that those 8 players are making the squad. George Fant, Abraham Lucas, Charles Cross, Tomlinson, Oluwatimi, Connor Williams, Anthony Bradford, and Christian Haynes. But you might say that might be a waste of resources. Why would you ever put so many players on the offensive line? Let's put some backups. Let's relocate that money somewhere else. Well, I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you why you get a center that is that good. So we're going to talk about the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, they really fucked this up. They never should have let Connor Williams go. So last year in 2024, I'm just going to show you. Let me show you something. Sorry, I love that reference. Here is Raheem Morris. Now, his last few seasons... the bulk of his seasons he was with San Francisco. He did have his rookie campaign in 2015. I did not know he played in 2015. He was with the Cleveland Browns, the Miami Dolphins, the Baltimore Ravens. And then in 2016, he was with Chicago before finally going to San Francisco, right? He was mostly an unknown. But when you go to 2017, he had Actually, let's skip. Sorry, 2018, right? The 2017 was the year where he had that big playoff game, I want to say. I'll have to check that out in a moment. But 2018, 261 yards and a touchdown. 2019, 772 yards and 8 touchdowns, right? So now he's improving now that he's getting considerably more reps. 2020, 521 yards and 2 touchdowns. Didn't play a lot in 2021. 2022, he goes to Miami with Connor Williams on 181 attempts, which is his most ever. He gets 891 and 3 touchdowns, 891 being a career high for him. But then last year he went fucking berserk. 209 yards attempts, 1,012 yards, 18 Yeah, 18 fucking touchdowns. In 6 years, he had 11 touchdowns with San Francisco. And then the other years combined, he had 3 touchdowns. He had 18. He more than doubled his career total. Absurd. That, of course, was at 4.8 yards per attempt, which was not his career high. His career high was the, hold on, where is it? The 5.6 that he had in 2019 for San Francisco. But hell of a player. When we look at his stats for that season, he missed week 16 and week 17 with injury. But for the most part of his season, pretty solid, right? He never had more than a 3 touchdown game, but his yards per attempt was consistently above 5, which is nice. But I want to talk about that. How much of this had to do with Connor Williams? I broke some things down. Connor Williams played 9 games last year. And then of the games that Mostert played without Connor Williams, he played 6. Right. In those 9 games, Mostert had 137 attempts, which is 15 rushing attempts per game. Without, he had 72 with 12 attempts per game. He had 709 yards with Connor Williams, which is 78.7 yards per game. Without, he had 303 yards, which is 50.5 yards per game. A considerable drop-off. With Connor Williams, he had 5.26 yards per attempt. But then without, he had 3.91 yards per attempt. In those 9 games with Connor Williams, he had 13 touchdowns out of his 18, right? And then without Connor Williams, he had 5. With Connor Williams, he had 1.44 touchdowns per game. And without, he had 83. Now, I just threw a ton of numbers at you, so I'm just gonna show you. It's in this corner over here. The big thing that you need to be aware of is this area here, the difference. So on 3 less games, right, he had 65 less attempts, which was -3 attempts per game less. Easy to understand. On his total, right, in the 3 less games, he had less than 406, which puts him at -28.2 yards per game less. That's that big thing between him averaging 78.7 yards per game and then dropping down to 50.5. Gigantic drop off. You're averaging 28 yards less per game. That's a lot of first downs. That's a lot of explosive plays because he's only getting 3 less attempts per game. He was running almost at the same rate. And I would bet that there was a lot of punts in comparison, right, which got him that -3 average. Big thing here, yards per attempt. He averaged 1.35 yards less per attempt, which is about half of a standard carry, right? If you think 3 yards should be the bare minimum, that's about just below half of a carry. And then for touchdowns, yeah, the difference is 8, right? But the main thing to focus on is he averaged 0.61 touchdowns less per game. So a little over half a touchdown less. And this in particular, the yards and then yards per attempt, that's spicy. That's delicious is what that is. That makes me excited because Mostert is very capable. There's a lot that Mostert has proven that he can do. You know who else is really capable? Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker and Mostert were neck and neck in EPA last year. Of course, there was Devon Chain of the Dolphins, who was way up the chart, right? He was damn explosive last year. But Mostert and Kenneth Walker were neck and neck last year in EPA. And on top of that, the Dolphins had an offensive line, and the Seahawks were missing their tackles for most of the season and just had some journeyman center. Yeah, there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of extra fat on that bone that we could have gotten with Kenneth Walker. Zach Chardonnet also right around that same area. Another really good back. And so if you were to just add to Kenneth Walker an extra 1.35 yards per attempt, now I'm curious, actually. Let's fucking do this shit. Let's fucking do this shit. Kenneth Walker. Game logs. 2023. Courtesy of Pro Football Reference. He was averaging 4.13 yards per attempt last year. If we add that 1.35, that'll put him at 5.44. Where Mostert last year, where is it? Averaged 4.84. So he would be just under Mostert's career year last year, where he scored 18 fucking touchdowns and over 1,000 yards. Kenneth Walker, of course, right at 905 yards and 8 touchdowns. When we look at his rookie campaign, he had 1,050 yards on 9 more touches and 9 touchdowns. So right around the same area. But if we just give him a little extra oomph from the center position with this 1.35, and we give him an extra 28 yards per game, I have been talking a lot about Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler. Alvin Kamara famously from the Saints, and then Austin Eckler famously from the Chargers, and they had the same offensive line coach. The coach's name is Brendan Nugent. I've talked to him about that, you guys about that a lot. If you're not familiar with that video, just search for it on the channel. And we have a whole breakdown of Brendan Nugent and what he could bring to the team scheme-wise. His thing is getting offensive linemen to the second level in particular so that he can create nice gaps, and in particular passing lanes, so that somebody who is zippy and speedy like Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler can get the ball and take off down the field. I fully expect our offense to run through Kenneth Walker. No problem whatsoever. And so if you pair him with Kennedy Palomalu, who is the running back coach for Josh Jacobs down in Las Vegas the last few years, Josh Jacobs being the one of, if not the best running backs in the league with no receiving touchdowns to speak of, there is no reason why Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet, if Kenneth goes down, can't have a career year. Even if Connor Williams only plays 10 games, even if Abraham Lucas only plays 5 games, there is no reason why we can't have the number one running, or at least running back, offense in the league. It's going to be like Christian McCaffrey with those damn pitches on the left side all day. It's going to be Austin Eckler picking off things on the flat because everything else is exposed. Ryan Grubb's offense making these big shot plays downfield so that it forces deep coverage, right? It's just going to leave Kenneth open. And since we have such an explosive offensive line and we finally have offensive line depth, these screenplays, when was the last time you saw an effective screenplay with the Seahawks? Probably before Pete Carroll. It is going to be epic. I've already predicted that Kenneth Walker is going to have like 900 yards rushing and 900 yards receiving. And there is no reason why he can't do that unless we have a series of injuries. But the injuries on the offensive line aren't going to be the problem because we have already established we have 8 starters on the offensive line. We have 3 starters at running back. The big question for me is tight end blocking at this point when it comes to blocking. But our scheme should be perfect. And yeah, we got Geno Smith there, but if he goes down, Sam Howell has no problem taking the ball and handing it off to Kenneth Walker for explosive runs. There's no reason our offense should rely on the quarterback at all. That's just going to be the cherry on top, is throwing the ball to DK Metcalf and company. So, long story short, the Dolphins seriously fucked up, and we took advantage of that. I am so excited for the 2024 season. Next week, we get a nice suit up against the Titans, right, where Geno Smith should be out there, and we'll get to see all the starters play even more reps. It's going to be great. Thank you so much for being here at First Kick Seahawks. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will follow up with you tomorrow later in the day. I appreciate you all.